Hey, everybody, welcome back to the High Performance Zone. Today, I have Scott Tingle, call sign Maker. He is an astronaut, a Navy fighter pilot, but really he's the head of human spaceflight at Johnson Space Center. I mean, how cool is that? It's the human in spaceflight. He's the associate director there. And we talk about what it's like to be in space. More importantly, what's the future of space? Where are we going? NASA, commercially, what it feels like and looks like to be in space, and compare that to flying F-18s and seeing the curvature of the Earth and flying jets on and off aircraft carriers. We get into the process of visualization, and this is really cool. You'll get to hear how he used visualization both as an aviator, but in space, and how he's even teaching it to his kids, and how we all can use it. This is an incredible time together. We have a lot of good memories. We actually get into fun about guitars and the Fender Strat, and how that can apply with habit patterns, creating some habit patterns that apply in business and life. So let's have fun. It turns out Maker and I, we walked the same steel. Here we go. Hey, everybody, I got Maker here and Gucci, and we're about to dive into a really cool podcast. Okay. This is about, being an astronaut, being a Navy fighter pilot, and then how maybe some of the connections with the Blues and the astronaut corps. Hey, Maker, how did you get your call sign? That's the first thing I want to know. Over to you, buddy. I'm glad you're here, buddy. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks. I'm glad to be here. It's truly a phenomenal day, and any chance we get to have fun and reconnect with fellow warriors, it's just a wonderful day. So thank you for having me. Call sign just goes with my last name. It wasn't anything special. Naval aviators aren't incredibly creative when it comes to call signs, and the more derogatory, the better, and the funnier. And it's all about humor in extreme situations. And so the call sign just goes with the last name.
Yeah, I got you. I got my call sign because I wore a thin black leather tie one day, and that wasn't even cool in the 80s. And all my buddies were like going, "That's Gucci," right? So, and I hated it, and therefore it stuck.
Right.
But Baker, man, you've got an incredible career as an astronaut. You're right now the associate director of flight ops at NASA at Johnson Space Center, right? I'm kind of want to just set the tone. Tell me what you're doing right now, and then I want to dive back into how did you build your career, because you've got such stories to tell. But what are you doing right now? What does it mean to be associate director?
Yeah, so it's probably an analog. It's not one for one comparison, but it's close. For our military folks out there, we have flight ops that include flight directors, flight controllers, some operational type engineers that support operations and do technical work, and we also have the astronauts here. So we are the humans in human spaceflight all across the organization, and that's 2,200 of us totally in the directorate, and we basically do all of the operations from cradle to grave, just like a program in the military for that. So the associate director position is kind of like a high level position in the directorate. If you compare it to an air wing, you have CAG and you have deputy CAG, and then you've got the OPSO. I'm kind of like the OPSO guy, and but there's a lot more of them because there's so many tentacles that go out throughout the community and the organization. So it's not a one for one comparison, but that's about the overall picture of how what we're doing.
I got to tell you, man, it doesn't get cooler than that. The human in human space flight. I mean, that's something that, I know is a dream. I wish I could have been an astronaut, buddy. I wish I could have seen space like you have. I understand that Neil Armstrong had made an inspiration at you about 4 years old, right? Tell me about that. What got you started to be an astronaut?
Yeah, so as a young person, you always have lots of dreams and talking about a lot of things. I moved around a little bit with my family when I was younger, and I was sitting in the living room right around my 4th birthday when Neil Armstrong walked on the moon, and my mom was sitting right next to me. We were eating popcorn, and she says, "Hey, you could do that." It's like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to be an astronaut. So, and you go through life, and you kind of forget about it. It's, you go through your phases of, hey, I want to be a draftsman. I want to be an electrician. I want to ride motorcycles. I want to play guitar. I want to do all this stuff. And then you get into high school, and I was like, well, I'm starting to feel like I could do something hard. So I'm going to go be an engineer. So I went to engineering school and got my bachelor's degree. And I was like, wow, I really like this, and I like staying up for 4 days to prepare for final exams and all the technical stuff. And you know what I'm talking about because you're a mechanical engineer too.
Yeah.
And so I did that. And I went to grad school, and then I got done with that. I was like, well, gosh, I really want to do a PhD because I'm really into this stuff. So, but I found a really good engineering job that would allow me to do both. But when I got there, I was flying a pit special for lunch break. And one day I was upside down and the tie came down and hit me in the head. And I was like, all right, I know where my path is. And that's when I converted from, I was enlisted in the reserves. I converted to AOCS, and I got my commission and started flying jets. And the whole time I was always looking for an avenue to, hey, what would be good to go to the astronaut corps? What do they need? What do I think they're going to need? And how can I be valuable to the country? And I picked a path that if it stops, because as a Blue Angel, you never know, you might go med down, something might happen, the program gets canceled. There's just so much out of your control. You got to be happy with the path that you're on, even if you can't make it. And I think Gene Cernan once said that if you shoot for the moon, if you miss, you'll hit the stars. So
Yeah.
that was kind of how I lived my life, and I always had it in the back of my head. I never really talked about it too much, but I had an inner desire, looking up at the sky at night. I want to be an astronaut. I got to go to the moon. I want to go fly in space. I want to fly rockets. I want to do this stuff. But I was also very happy being a naval aviator, a tactical aviator, and a test pilot, and it just progressed all the way. And I applied several times, 4 formal applications. I had 5 in, and one cycle got canceled. And my last time I was, early 40s, and I was like, there's no way. But I'm going to go to my grave knowing I tried as hard as I could try. And
Yeah, you got in on
I
your
ended up
5th
selected.
try, right? It was the 5th time?
It was my 5th application, but it was the 4th board cycle that I had gone through.
Wow. Yeah. What age normal are most astronauts selected? You said you're in your early 40s, but what are most?
Yeah. So you all ages. We have hired people that were in a PhD program that have not finished their PhD yet, so they're early 20s, and they have very, very long careers here. We also, I'm probably one of the oldest. There was one other person that they hired. It was a Navy flight surgeon that they hired a while ago. He was a grandfather before he flew in space, and he got one flight, I believe, for that. So it really is. There's no age requirements. There's no discrimination or anything like that. They really just kind of look at, hey, what's your value? What do you bring to the team? Can you fit in? And are you the type of person that we want on the team to be able to do this? And if you are, then you are. It doesn't really matter how old you are or how young you are.
What do you think the differentiator was on your 4th, board? Why did it finally come to be?
Well, you'll smile when I say this, but when I was younger, I was very assertive, and which is what we need in tactical aviation.
Yeah.
We're warriors, and we get the K-bar out and we go. And so I probably turned a lot of people off with that kind of attitude. It wasn't a bad in-your-face attitude. It was just very direct.
Yeah.
So that probably didn't help me out much. And as I got older and led more organizationally, throughout the Navy and other organizations, I think I got smarter. Emotional IQ went up a little bit, and I was working. That's a lifetime endeavor for me, and it ultimately ended up to a point in my career where I actually came out, interviewed, and fit in really well.
Wow. I think about the interview process on the Blues, it's probably very similar. We can unpack what that process was like at NASA there, but you're absolutely right. You're not looking for that person who is, that solo, big, strong individual. It's that team, right? And they got to fit. The chemistry's got to be right.
It's got to work.
Yeah, I don't know if you do this, but on the Blues, it's an application process where, it takes about a year. I mean, you go through all the formal stuff, but we finally get down to finalists. You have the meeting, interview in Pensacola. But at the end of the day, we get to pick, the replacements. How does NASA do it? Tell me about that selection process.
Yeah, so it changes a little bit, and NASA's like any other organization. There are personalities involved that kind of set the path, and that's okay because society changes, kind of waffles back and forth a little bit, and does has different directions and desires and needs for their future programs.
Yeah.
But all that being said, we get when I was applying, we only had 4,000 or 5,000 applications. Right, it sounds like a
Wow,
lot.
that's a
Everyone's like,
lot.
"Holy smokes!" And they hired 12. Wow, that's. I mean, you look at the odds of that, and that's pretty good. But this last time, we had close to 13,000 applications,
Wow.
and a lot of it has to do with the internet and the knowledge and the accessibility. And it was really good because we had a really big vat of folks to look at. But you sit down and you start looking at them, and they get ranked high highly qualified and qualified, and then not qualified.
Yep.
And then after you narrow it down, and there's a whole board of people that looks at it, they all have to agree. There's oversight that you come up with your lists and things like that, and everybody has to say okay. And it's a big, huge bureaucratic process with a lot. Sometimes there's emotion, sometimes there's passion, sometimes there's all the things that go along with, because it's a really big deal, not only for the individual but for the organization and the country. And so you just continually work through that, and you only have so much funding, so you can only bring out so many people for the first set of interviews. You get through that, and then you pick your second set of interviews that involves a lot of medical stuff,
Mm.
6 figures worth of medical exams and things like that while they're out here. And then out of that, we'll lose a couple, typically a few, a certain percentage medically, and then whatever's left, you take your pick, and you pick out the ones that you want the most, that think you'll have the best probability for success.
So these days, how many astronauts are aviators, pilots versus support mission? And does that matter in this selection process?
Um, Yes and no. There's right now we have a total of about 40 astronauts. We have about 10 pilots.
Really?
So, but we have another 10 that are backseat trained, flight test engineers or flight officers, weapon systems operators, things like that. But they like a certain percentage to have a diverse community. They like to take a little bit out of the acquisition communities or and the operational communities, because that's what they bring to the table, and that dovetails very nicely with a lot of the medical doctors, the
Mhm.
scientists, the engineers. You put them all together, and you really get a good team. You're going to the moon. Okay, you got to fly there, you got to live there, you got to operate there every day, you got to do a lot of science, and you got to get back safely. So you really need all the disciplines with you, and you only have 4 or 5 people, so you have to you have to really pick your disciplines really carefully. One of the things that we get worried about with the front seaters, though, is that flight training is I mean, that's what led to spaceflight. I mean, spaceflight came out of flight training and flight aviation, and it's very important. It's become part of our community, part of our culture. There's a lot of folks that want to stop that because they don't think we need it anymore. But I can't imagine going uphill, going through Mach 15 or whatever, not having any flight experience. I just can't imagine. Somebody has to control it when the red light comes on, and figure out what's going on, and all the docking and all that other stuff. Um, but we have the fleet of T-38s and fixed wing
Yep.
aircraft that we do training in, and we bring folks in. A lot of these folks right out of school, or some experienced PhDs or scientists, they'll come into the community, but with their operational experiences hiking, or maybe hang gliding, or private pilot flying, or something like that. But putting them in a high performance jet and getting all weird and crazy, upside down, yanking G's and flying formation, in the weather, out of the weather, making real time life decisions, really is great training, and it's part of our culture, and it's part of why we're so good at what we do. So we try to make sure that we have enough front seaters to keep that going. If we get down below, it gets hard because now you can't get the hours you need for the back seaters.
Right. Wow. We got so much to dive into. I want to, though, I was just thinking back to that Neil Armstrong. I remember the same day, I think I was 7 or 8, sitting in my grandmother's and grandfather's living room in Brooklyn, New York, watching Neil Armstrong, step on the
Yeah.
moon. And I had one of those aha moments like you did. I was like, I think, almost every kid would be like, God, I wish I could do that. And
Yeah.
you did it, man. I'm just so proud
I
of
know.
you.
It's crazy. It's crazy when I think about it because I'd given up several times in my career
Yeah.
and was very happy to be doing what I was doing. And but I don't know what, there was something inside me that just said, "Hey, just one more, keep going, one more step."
Amazing, man. And you were also a blue diamond, right? In
I
Lemoore.
was, yeah,
What
yeah.
was,
What a great squadron.
yeah. So I was in Lemoore in the 80s, though, 86 through 88, and then went back with the Fist of the Fleet. So I was with the Redcocks, the Fighting
Yep.
Redcocks on my first tour, and then the Fist of the Fleet. What do you remember about Lemoore?
Woo! It stinks out there.
Exactly.
Hey, it's I've got a lot of friends out there that I call family, and I'll
Yeah.
tell you that what a great place to raise a family.
Yeah.
It's in the San Joaquin Valley. It's yeah, you get all the ag stuff going on, and the pesticides, and the aerial spraying, and crop dusting and all that stuff, and the cows and whatever you want to say. But the neighbors out there were fantastic. You're pretty short drive if you don't mind driving to LA. You had Burbank, you had San Francisco, you had the Sierras, and the whole mountain range out there. So I really loved our time out there. My kids were all born at the Lemoore Hospital,
Were they
so
really?
all three of them. Yeah. So
Wow.
so that it's a special place.
Who was your time frame? Who were some of the people around? Do you remember Shifty Piers at all?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I've
you
been to a
do?
few parties with him.
Exactly. Well, that's one of the reasons I went to Lemoore, because I was in VT-25, so I'm in my training squad, and we're doing a cross country, and a guy named Hitman Kurt Hederman, who was a blue diamond, by the way,
Mhm.
back when they were A7s. He had to eject out over the water, but he said, "Hey, you're up for your cross country. Let's go to Lemoore. I've got this party we could go to. And then, the second day you can go visit your folks or whatever you want to do." And I'm like, okay, I'm a student. Of course I'll do whatever he wants.
Mhm.
And it's Shifty's 50s party, out there in the barn. And I'm just a little young naval aviator, not even a pilot yet. I mean, I'm not even winged yet. And I'm looking at all this and I'm going, this is the coolest place I could ever be. And
Yeah.
then, of course, I find out that's probably the greatest party of the entire year.
Right.
But I love Lemoore too. I think we were closer, right? The squadrons, I know, like at Miramar and all those guys, they had so many other distractions. And in Lemoore, it seemed to be a pretty tight community.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's a very tight community, and a lot of great folks came out of there. And folks go back and forth. And I think folks kind of prefer the East Coast because it's,
Mhm.
Virginia Beach. It's beautiful out there, right? And at the time, you had Jax, and you had, Cecil, and all those places too. But if it's we just got used to Lemoore, and it's you can fly loud airplanes out there. There's less it's changed a little bit. It's a little bit more restricted because of population growth. But flying around the Virginia Beach is a little hard just because of the congestion. You got a noise abatement and things like that.
Yeah. So for everybody, the master jet base in Lemoore, we're talking is Central Valley. That's where all the F-18s are, and Super Hornets now, and I guess the
Mhm.
F-35 and all that. And Virginia Beach is on the East Coast. Hey, tell me, let's pivot real quick to space flight, because
Mhm.
where are we going, man? What is the future of human space flight, and what are you focusing on right now?
Yeah, so we've got a lot of programs in development, and it's in the military. You're used to, hey, we're bringing in a new system, a new airplane, a new platform, and we're going to meet these mission requirements, and it goes through the process, and it's you can visualize it, and because you have operations and you have development. but the community is so small in human spaceflight that it's kind of blurred. Operations is development, development is operations, and we're trying to, now we have so much development going on that we're trying to separate it a little bit and try to so we can concentrate on operations a little bit too, because we have current ops and future ops, and just like everybody else. So where are we going? Right now, we have the International Space Station that's 250 miles up in orbit there, 6 people on board, 365 days a year. We've had people on board for 20 years now, and there's people coming graduating out of college right now that don't know life with 100% of the human race on the surface, right? We've
Wow.
always had people in space, which means that not everybody's on Earth. So
Right.
yeah, that's just weird when you think about it. But so we have the International Space Station. That'll probably be phased out around 2030, and it'll become more of a commercial venture, and we'll hand it off for somebody else, and we'll rent time on it, things like that. That's the concept anyway.
Hmm.
We're in the midst of the commercial crew program where we have the SpaceX Dragon that transports people back and forth to the International Space Station. The Boeing Starliner is in work, and hopefully will be up to speed here in the next few years to also do the same thing. So now we have 2 providers to provide a little bit of redundancy, reliability, and options. Helps keeps price down. The big the flag level program that we're working on is Artemis.
Mm.
It consists of the Orion and the Space Launch System, or SLS. Up top of that, we're building a gateway station, which will be in orbit around the moon, and we also have the HLS that will dock to gateway, and then Orion flies up from Earth, goes to the gateway, docks with gateway. The crew gets out, takes a breather, gets things all set, jumps in the human landing system, or HLS, goes to the moon for 6 or 7 days, does several spacewalks, science missions, and then comes back up, a couple of days to relax, get back in the vehicle, and come back to Earth for that. And so that's Artemis. We're calling it the Artemis generation. We're in the midst of building that program. It's There's a lot of components in motion already. We're flying Artemis 1 here this year, maybe early next year, as we'll see how it goes. Artemis 2 will be a year or 2 after, and then Artemis 3, which is supposed to be the return to the moon,
Wow.
this time to stay. And the goal is 2024. It depends on funding, it depends on country direction, it depends on technical progress. Cost, schedule, performance is everywhere, and hopefully it could be 2026 or so, but you don't know. But that's where we're going. We're going back to the moon, and we're going to use that to do science. There's minerals, there's we think water at the poles and on the dark side that you can't kind of quite see very good with our instrumentation. And then we'll use that as a test bed and all that whole process for concept of ops development, so that we can step off and go to Mars sometime in the next 10 to 20 years.
Wow. What that must feel, the energy must be so exciting now, knowing that it's going to happen, right? You guys are on that path.
Yes, absolutely. And when I can separate all of the noise that we have to go through every day to keep people healthy and happy, and systems on the right track, it's absolutely mind-boggling when you look at where we are on our exploration curve. And we're right at the cusp, right at a knee in the curve. Commercial providers are ramping up. We've got a lot of interest. It could be a commercial person that gets back to the moon first. We don't know yet, right? Because
Wow.
everybody's doing their thing, and it's really good. There's a new space race going on, and it's between commercial and government. So, and we're happy either way with either winner on that.
Yeah, I'm glad you call it a space race. It's pretty cool. Give me the inside scoop as far as why are so many people interested in space from a commercial standpoint? What is driving that?
Well, so to seed the community, there's a need. We have low Earth orbit. We have a national laboratory that orbits the Earth and has been for 20 years. There's incredible science that happens up there every day. And so getting science samples, getting equipment, getting procedures, getting people up into that low Earth orbit area is critical, and it's a lot of energy to go to do it, and it's to do it safely and reliably. It really takes a lot of focus, and you know, you're very well versed with extreme operations, and if you're not paying attention for a split second, it's something's not good, and so it's the same way, and so it really takes a lot of energy to do that. But it's getting easier as we're getting smarter, and the systems are getting more tighter, and our knowledge is just getting better. So so there's a real need for that. The commercial folks want to do it for several reasons. One, there's a lot of science that they can do. It can help their products. It can help human species. And two, there's a pretty big market for folks that just want to go sightsee, you know,
Yeah.
tourists. And,
Yeah.
you know, people want to come back and go, I went to space, right? Because
Yeah.
it was been such a limited community. And, you know, and you go back to when aviation started, it was kind of the same thing. And, where you know, just a select few were able to go across the pond on an airplane. They didn't have to take a boat, right? So now we've got vehicles that can take us to space for a few days and then bring them back, and all fairly reliably and fairly safely. Um, it's not incredibly safe 100%, right? I mean, there's risk. There's still risk here. We're getting smarter about mitigating it. So there'll be some setbacks for sure. But I think that's a normal stepping stone for colonizing space. Living on the moon, you know, again, there's minerals. There's a lot of, you know, we need minerals for our lithium batteries, for example, you know, things like that. And that's an opportunity. It's a low gravity environment, so you're able to test systems with less body forces and less inputs. You can kind of control them a little bit better, and it's a great proving ground for going to Mars and all the procedures. And you can still get home in a few days if something's not right. So it's really kind of the next step for building capability. So lots of interest, lots of great benefits that come back, and the spin-offs that come from the technology that we help develop. Contractors develop it. We kind of, you know, tell them what we need, and we can do. Look at this. You know, it's like, wow, supply and demand. Here comes a demand signal, and so a lot of need.
Nice, nice. Talk to me about the shirt you're wearing. Which trip was that?
Oh, so I've only been up to space once. But so it was my first trip and my most recent trip. But it's Expedition 55, the for the patch. You know, it was an international crew, so we had Japanese, Russian, and American, and it was the three nations coming together to make a common mission happen. And we had 6 folks on board the International Space Station. So
Sweet.
that's what it is.
That's what do you remember, Maker? What's it like to go to space for the first time? I mean, what do you remember?
Well, you know, you dream about it for a lifetime.
Yeah.
And you work your tail off to make it work and to bring value. And then you get there and you're in training. You're in Russia for 2 months before you even launch. And then one day you end up in the desert in Baikonur, Kazakhstan, and you're up for about 2 days because you can't sleep. Your wife comes over to see you right before the launch, and your family's there, and you go through the whole launch. You're up at 2 or 3 in the morning to get a couple medical procedures to make sure that you have a comfortable ride for the first day or two, and then you say bye. You climb up.
Wait a minute. Let me back up. What do you mean medical procedures to have a comfortable ride? What does that mean?
Yeah, so like bowel movements and other things. You don't want to have to mess with those while you're in the suit.
Okay, there you go. Good. That's got it. All right. So keep going now. What happens though?
Yeah. And so you go through the process, you launch. 8.5 minutes later, you're at main engine cutoff. And the first thought, you're like, everyone says, hey, congratulations, you're in space. You give the high five. And honestly, my first thought was, it's about time now I can take a nap. I'm tired. So, and we did. We set up the cockpit and we went to sleep for about 8 hours because it's a long day. But overall, when you first look out the window, you're like, wow, this looks just like it does from my Hornet, except I'm a little bit higher.
Well, tell me, because you know the highest. How high did you get the Hornet to? What's the highest you took it?
49,999 feet.
Oh, see, you're a test. Yeah, I got you. Okay, so for me, and do you ever tell? I don't know if I told you the story. I was doing a Pro C or whatever it was. What was the test hop for the engine? Was that a Pro C, a Pro A? Do you remember?
It's proceed.
Pro C. Okay, yeah. So
Yep.
I was doing a Pro C, and you got some extra time, and I said, well, shoot, I wonder how high this thing can really go. And actually it was on the second flight. No, I came back and the boss said, hey, take that up again. And so I did the Rotowski climb thing, supersonic out over the water by Pensacola there. And I got it up to 57,000, I think 250 or 260. I can't remember exactly, but you know how, I mean, you just got to barely get that nose over, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're pivoting there, and I didn't
Yeah.
want to do a folly leaf from there, right? But
Right.
I don't know. From test pilot school, did you guys get it any higher? Do you know? Maybe if we can't talk about it, we can't talk about it. But I know it says 50,000 plus in the manual, but that was
Yeah.
my
The limit in OpNav 3710 and most operational documents is 50,000 feet, and that's in case you have a depressurization. We don't have suits on, and we don't want to get the bends, so that's why we're limited to 50,000 feet.
Yeah.
But I would have loved to have gone higher than that, but that was about it.
Yeah. So I'm no longer in the Navy. I think I'm okay now. but who knows? But I guess, yeah, you got it. 50,000.
It's all good.
Yeah, it's good. Hey, what do they talk about this overview effect? Did you feel something like that? Thinking about the bigger purpose of life and mission. I mean, did it change you at all seeing the Earth from that distance?
Sometimes I think about it, and it without a doubt it impacts you because it becomes part of you. You have been one of 600 or 800 or however many people have been in space. One of the few that could actually see the Earth like that with all the green and the gray and the blue and the clouds, and it's really a beautiful place. Was I surprised, or did I have a out of body experience? No. People have asked me that before from lots of different perspectives, and I think, and it's not because I'm cold or I'm just a crusty Navy aviator tough guy or whatever, but it's just because I knew the Earth was beautiful before I went to space. I didn't have to go to space to know that, but going to space did confirm that and affirm that. And so it was, from that perspective, it was like, yeah, we live on the best spaceship in the world and in the universe, and it's called Earth, and it's great to be there.
It must feel so precious to actually, I only know the pictures, right? But to actually been there, see it, and then come back. I would think that you have such a bigger appreciation for the beauty. I'm looking out here. I live in Sun Valley. I'm looking at the aspen trees, and they're kind of glistening with the wind going through them right now. And we take that for granted. At least I do.
Right.
So precious.
Yeah, you got to wake up before the sun and head out on the porch with your iced tea or your coffee or your energy drink, whatever your drink du jour is, and watch the sun come up and watch the beauty unfold. And one thing I did notice, we get about 16 to 18 sunrises and sunsets a day up on the station. Oh, cool. And every time the sun comes over the horizon, I just think to myself, it's like, wow, the promise of the coming day is a real thing.
Wow. Hey, talk to me about your guitar playing. I hear you got guitar, right? What do you play? You play a Fender, or what do you play?
I do. Yeah, I'm a Fender nut, Stratocaster. I've been dying to buy a new guitar because I've had this guitar since I've been about 15 years old. And, we always have kids and college and cars and things to take care of, priorities. And so I never really bought myself a new guitar. But I'm getting ready to go buy another one. But and my wife says, "Which one do you want?" And I go right to the Stratocasters. It's like, "Oh, I want that one." She goes, "That's just like yours." I go, "Yeah, it is." so
are they the best? Is the Stratocaster the best?
No, it just resonates with me. I just love that bluesy sound, and the necks. If you get the right neck with it, it fits my hand. I have smaller hands, and it just seems to fit me, and I like it. Although the Paul Reed Smith guitars are ripping too, and if you can get the right neck on those, so I've been looking at those a little bit. Um, Lots of options out there, and I guess one of these days I will. But I'm getting old, and the fingers don't move like they used to. Maybe I'll buy
What
an acoustic.
I never had the discipline. I don't know. I would love to play guitar someday, I think, but I never picked it up. What have you learned from playing guitar to being a test pilot to being an astronaut? Any connections in there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you got the whole teamwork thing. If you play in a band or whatever, you usually have people from diverse backgrounds, and they all have different ideas on where the band should go, what the song should sound like, what the lights look like, what stage, what gigs, all this stuff, and being able to broker all of that and be part of a team was really critical to even just doing college gigs, and so. And when you're young, that's kind of a big deal because everybody wants to have it their way. So being able to just kind of settle down a little bit and get the team together helps on that. But the one of the big things that and that carries all the way through. One of the things that I do and I had to do in the astronaut, which I did in flight training, and I taught myself how to do when I was playing guitar, is you got to do you got to go through and you got to do drills. And
Mm.
like, hey, if I don't know how to do this, okay, so you start off real slow playing the notes, and then a week later you're playing a little faster, but you set up a time and you just do them for 10, 15, 20 minutes a day until you got it. And it's just a drill. And then you can start putting them together and improvising and getting and growing from there. But you got to have the basics down. And in
Mm.
flight training, we learn really early that you have to chair fly before your basic instrument flight or before your flight to the ship. And I went out and I bought a $40 desk in Meridian, Mississippi. I drilled on JJ Cummings. He's just got done being the skipper of the Ford. He was my
Oh,
roommate. Scott Cartvet, who was a blue, was also my other roommate.
oh, really?
They
Scott
still owe
was.
me money, by the way. If you guys are reading it, I haven't forgotten. He the drilled a hole in my side of my thing, and so I could put on a throttle and a fake stick. And this was before they had all these things for the video games. And I
Yeah,
would
yeah,
just sit there and go through my procedures. Go, okay, I'm coming around my S turn. I'm going to
yeah.
add a little power. I'm going to pull power, and I would do it. And then by the time I got in the simulator, it was a habit pattern already, and I really just had to focus on it. I had to print out of the scan. I would just sit there for hours and go doink, 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 just so that my eyes and my brain would just get used to moving and to doing the same things to make it habit pattern. By the time I got into the astronaut corps, we were doing robotics, we were doing Russian language, we were doing ISS systems, we were doing all kinds of things. And finally, I realized I was having trouble with in some of the areas, and I was like, you know what? I got to do drills. I got to do drills. It's not coming to me. So in each one of the areas, I set up drills, and I just did drills, and it really helped out quite a bit to make all of that work. And so even to this day, and I taught my kids how to do it. I have one of my sons is at the Naval Academy, and another
Oh, he
daughter on
is.
the East Coast, and then a
Great.
son up in Cleveland. He's doing music, by the way, and he's having a blast doing it. He's on tour with Leon's or King of Leon, or it's a new band. I'm an old
Yeah.
guy, so
No, I
yeah,
don't know
whatever.
it either. Yeah.
But it's pretty cool, and
Yeah.
but I've taught them all how to do this. And my son from the academy called the other night and said, "Yeah, I was having trouble with my rates." So I sat down and I wrote them 4 times out every night for a week, and then I had it. I was like, "There you go. It's a drill. You got to drill yourself." So that has carried me through all the way.
How do you teach visualization to your kids or to anybody, even right now? Like, how would you? I'm thinking if I'm listening to this, because I know, we did it in flying. It was, you've seen the videos of the blues. We actually do it together, which is
Mhm.
kind of odd. I'd never done that before. I'd done it
Right.
individually, but never as a group. Let me ask that question. Have you ever done it? Do you guys do any like group visualizations at NASA or anything else?
So we do what's called paper sims, which is,
Okay.
if you've read the Fifth Discipline by Peter Senge, he talks about microworld, and it's basically the same thing. We actually sit down with nothing, and it's an exercise for your brain to get through the thought processes of what you need to do. And so we do paper sims here, and this relates back to the other stuff that I've learned. And we say, okay, we're doing launch day. These are the conditions, and then this happens. What do you do? And you just go around the room with all the disciplines and go, what are you doing? And everybody throws darts at it and thinks about it and says, well, I'm calling this. Okay, where's your list? Do you have a list? Yeah, pulls up the list, and you say, who are you calling first? What are you telling them? And what are you requesting? And things like that. And so there's a lot of great value that comes. And I always come out of those things going, wow, there's 4 or 5 items here that I did not think about before, and I'm glad I
Wow.
did.
Really? So you're learning at that level every time.
Yeah, and it's not just learning because it's better than just learning if I were sitting there practicing by myself, because I got 15 of my best friends with me learning
Yeah.
from their experiences too, and it's really a wonderful experience.
Wow. How often do you do that?
It kind of depends on the launch and landing schedules. We try to do a couple of them, in between the timelines, because we use it in preparation for the next event, a round of events, for that, because things change and they're dynamic in the community. So that's we try to quarterly, probably.
That, that's powerful. What is the fifth discipline? I didn't read the book, but it sounds cool. What is it?
That's cool. It just talks about systemic cycles and how they affect leadership and teamwork, things like that. I liked it because I have a systems kind of brain,
Yep.
and if I can see things that are happening in a team or in a organization, and I can relate it to a certain cycle, you can kind of predict what's going to happen, and why it's bad, and why it's okay, or things like that. And so, a lot of shifting the burden, a lot of limits to growth. And, in the government, you see a lot of limits to growth because, there's
Mm.
so much bureaucracy. You have to figure out a way around it. But being able to get the symptoms and the core cause, and actually trace it back to the core cause, which we rarely do, because we're reactive in nature. We like to take care of all the symptoms. And if we
Yep.
fix the symptoms, we think it's good. And it usually is for about, you know, a couple days. Then it starts exploding again.
Do you guys do debriefs like we did in the fleet and like we did in the blues? And if so, how do you guys do debriefs?
So the debriefs actually stretch out over about 2 or 3 months,
Wow.
and so there's no and so on a space flight you have the capsule, you have the training that went into the capsule, and the crew, you have the human waste system, you have food, you have your environmental control systems, you have your sleep systems, you have the spacewalk, you have the suit, you have the combustion chamber, you have all the things we do science with, the glove boxes, we have all the communication systems. We have the navigation systems. I mean, you name it, and they're all similar to what we have in airplanes, except minus the science stuff. Except they're on steroids, right? They're a lot
Mm.
bigger. They're a lot more detailed. They're specifically unique systems, and designed to work in zero gravity. And so everybody wants to know how they work so they can make it better. And so we take notes as we go along, and we talk on the radio and send down notes, and they remind us, because you're up there for 6 months,
Wow.
and then you have to they want to debrief. So you give each system about an hour, and it takes over the course of about 2 or 3 months to really get all the details out and do that. If we're doing a spacewalk, we'll brief that, and we start briefing it 2 weeks to 3 weeks prior, because there's a lot of details that go
Wow.
into that. You're basically climbing into another small spacecraft and going outside with it, and
Right.
um, and so there's a lot going on there. We'll execute, we'll come back, we'll debrief ourselves for half hour, an hour. Usually we're pretty tired because it's about a 14-hour day, but
Wow.
then the day after we'll have a total team debrief, which is on the downlink with video and all that stuff. And we'll talk to all the planners and all the technicians on the details of how it went. That usually lasts a couple hours. And if there's a lot of details, it may split into a couple more sessions. So we do the same thing, but it's not as efficient and it's not as time sensitive as what you'd see with the blues.
Yeah, no, I got it. Hey, what's the most fun now? What are you having the most fun in, whether personally or professionally? What is driving you?
Well, the whole work-life balance, I think, is becoming more fun right now. We don't have much of it when, we work hard and we play hard all the time.
Yeah.
And when you can get to the point where I think you probably are looking out at the aspens right now,
Yeah.
that it's really an awakening, right? You realize, wow, I don't have to work 18 hours because I don't have to be on my A game tomorrow. A couple of days later I do, so I'll be the dog jumping in the back of a truck and I'll just jam real hard the day before and we'll be good to go.
Yeah.
And so you kind of know yourself and you can make all that happen. But so that's fun. I just bought some property up north and I'm hoping to build a little cabin and just kind of have a place to disappear for that. And so that's fun. But the real fun, I mean, my best days, like most of this week, going home after a great day of team engagement,
Yeah.
leading them and helping them and helping them through problems is really fun. It's really rewarding. And, in the Navy, you go from job to job and you work your butt off. And then when you get really good at it, you move on to the next job.
Right.
And that's how we grow so fast. But it also kind of limits some of the getting the benefits of your hard work. You're giving them to somebody else, but you're getting the benefits from somebody else before you too. So no big deal. But here it's you stay in your jobs for a little bit longer, and it's really fun to work with the high quality people. They're absolutely incredible.
Well, I can only imagine, because everybody to get selected to be part of that team. What's the similarities and what's the differences between the teams you've been on, whether it's been sports, whether it's been the Navy, and now at NASA? Give me, what's similar first and what's different?
Yeah, so there's kind of two things that are similar, which is amazing because they're vastly different types of teams. The military, you've got very young people. We're in an extreme environment. It's life or death every day. And when you walk out to your airplane and you see the person, when you're walking out, into the ready room, getting dressed, and you see that person coming out of the catapult, trough or the engines for the resting gear, and they're just covered in head to toe in grease. It's 120 degrees on the North Indian Ocean, and these guys are just smiling, and they actually look and say, "Have a great flight, sir."
Yeah.
And those folks, they just make me want to stop complaining, and they inspire me to work harder than I ever have. And I think about those guys even when I'm climbing into a rocket or a simulator when I don't want to be, and they're really inspirational people. Here at NASA, we have some older folks. We have a lot of young folks coming in too, and they're really happy to be picking up the torch. But we've got some really good technical folks that they're a lot of them are civil servants and contractors, but they are true blue. And they don't want anything to happen to us. They want us to be prepared. If we're not doing something right, they don't have any problem stopping us, sitting us down, and having talking to us and telling us we need to work harder and we need to do this and do that. And I always nod my head up and down and go, "Yeah, you're right. I will do better next time, and next time I will do better because I don't want to go through that again." But they are really talented folks. They've been doing this for a long, long time. They know what they're doing. And they work really hard. They care. They really care, and they become family, just like on the Navy ships and the squadrons for that. The other thing, it's kind of technical, but is in common, is I have not been on a team yet that hasn't gone through the forming, storming, norming, performing, adjourning process. And you know what? You could be on a team with 6 people. One of them comes out, you put in a new one, and you're starting all over again. So
yes. That forming, norming, storming, performing, what is, where do you learn, I'm trying to think right question. Where do you learn the most in that sequence? And is it also where it's the hardest?
At the end of the storming, because that's
Yeah.
usually I know it's coming, so I can back off and just let the storm happen, and I watch and I can learn from that. But usually by the end of storming, I'm so fatigued, I get into it and I start becoming part of the problem, and then all of a sudden it just starts smoothing out. And as you go through that transition, you kind of spike, you come back down again, and then you normalize. And that is when you look in the rearview mirror, you're like, I didn't need to be worried about that. And so for me, that's the most personal growth, and I've come to expect it. But I keep briefing. I'm briefing it now, right? And I'm going to probably be joining new teams here in the next few weeks or whatever. And I guarantee you, I'm going to forget about it, get in the middle of it.
Hey, Maker, I'm thinking about a carrier landing. How many of those did you get?
About 750.
You got 750? Holy cow! That's
Hey, Skipper Picorni was way over 1,000, right? He was what, 1,100 or something?
yeah.
He was a bagger.
But 750, and then that's with test pilot school involved, right? And then making the astronauts. What I'm thinking about a night carrier landing for most people, they've never experienced that. How does that similar? Is it similar at all to some of the astronaut training or anything? Is there any similarity? I guess what this question I'm asking is, it's just such an intense thing. How do you relate that experience to some other things in your life?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things in naval aviation that really require you to be on your A game. The first and most obvious is landing on the ship, and then you add nighttime, and you really got to do it. Being a paddles on the other side is just as challenging.
Were you at
For the
paddles? You an LSO? Yeah, CAG
I was.
LSO, right?
Yep,
Holy
yep.
cow!
So
Yeah, I was an LSO too with my fleet squadrons. But keep going, please.
awesome. Yeah, what air wing? You remember?
Yeah, 11. So we were CAG 11 on my first air wing. Yeah.
Yeah, barbed wires. That was a barbed wire keg paddle. So
Ah, nice.
see, yeah, we're connected.
Unbelievable.
We've walked the same steel.
I know. I used to dip chewing tobacco back then. Not now. I gave it up, right? But I remember that it was so much fun to be on that LSO platform and back in the night, 1,000 miles from any land, right? And you see the stars going into the ocean and just having a dip. And I got a chance to work with Nick Saban in Alabama, and we're talking a while, and Coach Saban was, we're just talking. All of a sudden, he was having a dip, and I said, "Oh, okay, Coach." He goes, "Oh, I'm sorry." I said, "No, I used to do that." And I said, "But Coach, here's what you want to do. You want to have a dip on the back of an aircraft carrier with the jets turning, stars out in the middle of night, in the middle of the Indian Ocean." 3 days later, we're walking off the field, and he calls me over and he goes, "Hey, Gucci, you changed my bucket list." And I said, "Really?" And he says, "Yeah." He says, "I want to have a dip on the back of an aircraft carrier."
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I tell you what, there's the back of the ship is a beautiful place at night, and people don't really get that because it's a very dangerous place. But if you can take a second and look around, I mean, you see stars like it's no big. I mean, it's just incredible. Depending on where you are, sometimes you see the flying fish, sometimes you see the sharks go by, or the sea snakes or whatever. But it's really a cool experience.
Yeah, hey, do the stars look? I'm just thinking about that because when there's no moon and you're in the middle of the ocean.
Mhm.
But what's it like at space? Can you see, like, does the galaxy just become very vibrant?
Oh, absolutely. But it's just like on the back of the ship on a dark night or up in the mountains or something like that. That's what it looks like. However, there's a difference. When you're on the mountain, looking up and there's no light pollution, it's just a beautiful, wonderful experience. And you could enjoy it for 6 or 7 hours. You only got about 4 minutes, uh, in space, because right when you're coming up, it's like all of a sudden you can't see anything, and then boom, you start seeing the stars, and then boom, they're all right there, and you're like, wow, there's all the constellations. There, oh my God, here comes the moon. There go the stars, gone.
Whoa, that's 16 times a day, right? You get that
Yeah,
experience?
Yeah, it is, and a lot of it depends on the orbit angle and the declination and all that stuff for that. But it's I got had taken a couple of pictures of Earth and some Earth observation targets type things, and the best pictures are you get the moon glint or the sun glint coming across the water or coming across a lake or the land with a land feature, you know. And one of my pictures was Vancouver, the whole Pacific Northwest with the sun glint kind of as it was setting. It was really a nice picture, and there's lots of them out there too. So yeah.
Awesome. You know, I'm wearing this shirt. Glad to be here. I think we got you one. I hope so. Did you get it yet?
I think I had a package there last night, but I didn't get to open it, so I think it's there.
You got one. You got a glad to be here shirt coming. And you know, that's a saying we had on the Blues. You know, at the end of our debrief, we always reminded ourselves and we say glad to be here. What does glad to be here mean to you?
Well, for me, like I said earlier, glad to be here. Я рад быть здесь in Russian,
Ah,
and it's waking up every day and coming to be part of this wonderful team. Again, you know, and I brief when we talk about the new folks, and we talk to the new folks, and we're just in-docking them to the directorate. I say, hey, all the technical stuff and the operational stuff is you won't experience this stuff anywhere else. This is really cool, but that's not what you should focus on. You need to focus on the relationships because 30 years from now, that is what's going to make your life tick. And that's why I'm glad to be here.
wow, Maker, deep wisdom, brother. I'm so proud of you. And I've just enjoyed the hell out of this time together. You really brought it to my heart, not just my head. And I'm grateful that you're at NASA. I'm grateful that you're making a difference. Human space flight. Just thanks for what you're doing, man. You're making a difference in a lot of people's lives, and really enjoyed this time together. Glad to be here, brother.
Hey, Gucci, I'm glad to be here too. Thank you so much to your audience. Thanks to everybody for the great support. It's really about humanity here, and I am so glad that you invited me to be on here. And Yarad Buits is Dis. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, brother. Gucci out.